This is the Louie Tee Network.
For me, your man, Louie Tee. Welcome to day number 2 of my continued 2017 NFL Scouting Combine coverage. This is a big day offensively. Last day for the offense in the 2017 NFL Scouting Combine as the quarterbacks, receivers, and tight ends would come out to the field and showcase their skills. And it was a big day. A lot of guys helped themselves tremendously. We expected this. I talked about the tight end group before the college football season. They did not disappoint. Talked about the receivers and how I was going to be a little disappointed because some of the guys that I wanted to see weren't going to run, but we got a hell of a performance by one receiver in particular running his 40. We'll talk about that. And we'll talk about some other guys that may have helped themselves or hurt themselves at the receiver position during the combine in day 2. And then, of course, the granddaddy of them all, the biggest position known to mankind in football, quarterback. We'll talk about them first and foremost. And let's start with the first group of quarterbacks, and we'll knock down both groups 1 and 2 from day 2 of the quarterbacks at the combine. We'll start with the group that first led the morning off, that being, and group 1 for me had about 4 quarterbacks that I really wanted to focus in on: Josh Dobbs, Deshaun Kaiser, Brad Kaya, and Trevor Knight. Those were the guys that I was looking at, and I said, okay, I think these guys have a legit shot at making an NFL roster. Look, some of those other guys, Mitch Leidner and all of those guys, they may have a shot. Okay, I don't know. You know how this process goes. All it takes is one. There are 32 teams. All it takes is one. But these are the 4 guys that I chose to focus in on in that first group. And let's start with Joshua Dobbs, 4'6", 40. So he went out, showcased the athleticism that we knew he possessed. I thought he was very impressive throughout the course of the day. I think his footwork needs work, but then again, what am I really saying to you? This is a guy that played out of the spread. Most of these spread quarterbacks, if not all of them, need work footwork-wise. So I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but I thought just from an arm standpoint, I walked away impressed. A lot of people have been telling me, hey, look, man, this guy's talented. And I've had my preconceived notions. I've watched plenty of Tennessee football, have never been a big fan of Joshua Dobbs, but I will tell you, the man can throw the football. He looked good all day long. I thought he ripped it all day long. Just the footwork that bothers me. But again, everyone has a great opportunity to look great in t-shirt and shorts. He did his thing. Thought he helped himself at the combine on Saturday. Deshaun Kaiser, a guy that I'm going to talk about in the draft wrap-up series, as we're going to start with the quarterbacks on Tuesday, and he's going to be one of the guys that I'm going to mention when I'm talking quarterbacks. 4'8", 40. So I think a lot of people underrate his athleticism. He showcased a little bit of that with the 4'8", and you think to yourself, 4'8", not that great. Carson Wentz, we all think he's athletic, right? Ran a 4'7" last year. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Let's not fall into the trap of worrying about the guys and comparing them to guys that are uber athletes. Your Robert Griffin IIIs of the world, your Marcus Mariotas. These are the guys running sub 4.6s. Don't compare him, because he's not that type of athlete. He's a different breed. He's a 4'8" guy, and that's fine. That's plenty of athleticism for a guy his size. Strong arm was showcased and displayed at the combine, but he was very inaccurate all day long, and that worries me. That's something that you'll get from him from time to time, and I thought he was very inaccurate throughout the course of the day. But you saw the arm, you saw the talent. I actually thought his feet were actually not that bad. I thought his feet were very quiet, as a matter of fact. So other than the fact that, and I thought David Carr did a great job during the telecast. Speaking of which, him and Greg Olsen, to me, do a great job. Olsen every year that he's been a part of this telecast. And I think this might be Carr's first year doing this. He did a really good job. And he talked about his front foot and that platform changing just about every time he throws the football. So your launching point then changes because your foot changes, it changes where the football goes. You see it go high, you see it go low, left, right. And you saw that from DeShone Kizer throughout the course of the day. So that's something he's going to have to clean up. But again, you can work on footwork. That can be adjusted. That can be fixed. What can't is arm strength. He has that, and the mobility in the pocket and outside of it, he has that as well. And I thought he showcased a lot of that on this day. Brad Kaaya did not run the 40. Was disappointed, wanted to see him do that. But all that tells me is that he's not fast, which I really don't care about. Bottom line is silky smooth all day long. Of this group, I was most impressed with Brad Kaaya. But I came into, remember, a lot of people had Brad Kaaya pegged as their #1 overall quarterback going into the college football season. So this was not a surprise to me that he came out and he stroked it. Mike Mayock, I think he said it best, that when Brad Kaaya is protected, this guy is money, okay? It's when pressure is in his lap where he starts to break down his play, his footwork, his mechanics, his decision-making. All of those things start to deteriorate once pressure is in his lap. You're not going to see any pressure at the combine, so I expected him to go out and perform at a high level, and that he did to me. Of the first group of quarterbacks, he was the best all day long with that group. I thought he was the most accurate, most consistent through the tightest spiral, just looked comfortable. His footwork looked the best of the group. I thought that if you were going just off of the combine in that first group, Brad Kaaya was the guy that stood out from the rest of that group. Trevor Knight, 4.54 40. We know that this guy is uber athletic. I'm a victim of this, and I thought that Charles Davis did a great job of encapsulating the problem with Trevor Knight. Daniel Jeremiah, he's thinking the same way that I think. And I look at Trevor Knight, and for all of the things that have happened throughout the course of his career, I always think about his true freshman year at Oklahoma and him destroying Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. And I can't get that out of my mind because that night I thought I saw the makings of a superstar. And Charles Davis said that was the bane of his existence in college football. It was the highlight of his career, but it was also the bane of his existence. Because of that game, the bar was set so high for him the remainder of his collegiate career. He could never live up to that hype. And because of that, I think we look at Trevor Knight in a different light. I think that this guy is talented. I think he can play at the next level. The question is, can he be consistent? And Charles Davis said that exact same thing, and I couldn't agree with him more. He flashed the athleticism. I think we saw the talent. There were some throws he made where you go, damn, Trevor Knight can do this. And then you saw the inconsistencies where the ball would be flying all over the place, balls hitting the dirt, and you just say, that's the Trevor Knight that frustrates you. That's the guy that transferred to Texas A&M, and you just could never really get a firm handle on what you were going to get from week to week. But in any event, if a team is looking for a developmental quarterback, he's another one of those guys you throw into the mix of, nope, not ready, nowhere near it. But if you can work with him for a year or two, you may have something down the line, even if it's only in a backup capacity. I think Trevor Knight is a guy that you can take a flyer on and maybe get something out of it down the road. You go to the Group 2 quarterbacks that came later in the day with the second group of wide receivers. This was the heavy hitting group. This was the main event. The first group of quarterbacks, they were the the appetizer. This second group was the entree. They were the main course. Patrick Mahomes the second, Nathan Peterman, Mitchell Trubisky, no longer Mitch. His mama named him Mitchell. I'm going to call him Mitchell. Deshaun Watson and Davis Webb. These are all the guys that I chose to focus in on. So you're talking about 5 quarterbacks in that group. We'll start with Patrick Mahomes the second. 4.8 40. Was a little surprised. I thought he was bigger than what he was. He checked in at 6'2", about 224. Thought he was a little bit bigger than that. Thought he was bigger than that on tape. I guess I was wrong. So a little bit surprised at his size. 4.8 40 is right around what I expected. I didn't think he was a tremendous athlete on tape. He's got escapability, as we all know. If you've watched any of his tape, you know that this guy can move, but never was wild with his athleticism. So that to me is a solid time for him athletically. Huge arm. We knew that coming into the combine. He did not disappoint. Again, much like DeShone Kizer, another big arm quarterback in this draft, he struggled with consistency and accuracy throughout the day. Ball placement was not great for him. And another guy that has never been under center. So you're talking about a guy that's struggling with 5-step drops, with 7-step drops, with 5 steps in a hitch. All of those things are new and foreign to him because he did not do that at Texas Tech. So again, Mahomes, big arm, gonna need some work, but he's very intriguing because of all of the different things and the different skill sets that he brings to the table. Nathan Peterman, 4.82 40. They compare him to Kirk Cousins. He's a guy that doesn't have as big an arm as some of the higher profile quarterbacks in this draft, but he's a really solid quarterback, good game manager, gets you in and out of plays. Unlike a lot of these quarterbacks in this draft, he actually played under center in a pro-style offense at Pitt with James Conner. So he looked really comfortable getting from under center. He looked comfortable getting out into his set, getting rid of the football. Footwork looked clean. You can tell when guys have done it before and versus the guys who really haven't. And he was very comfortable out there. I thought he threw the football well all day long. He did nothing to hurt himself on Saturday. You look at Mitchell Trubisky, a guy that has been talked about as potentially the first overall pick to the Cleveland Browns. They're starting to fall in love with him, so they say. In any event, 4.67. I'm going to talk about him extensively when I break him down on the Draft Prospects 101 series, but I like what I've seen thus far from him. I think he's an underrated athlete. He showed it in this day in the combine in day 2. 4.67 40. That is a tremendous time. Again, I told you Carson Wentz ran a 4.77 last year. This guy just blew that out of the water at 4.67. I don't think a lot of people give him enough credit for what he's able to do with his legs. You saw that on display at the combine. Thought he threw the football extremely well. I thought Mitchell Trubisky went out and showed why he was one of the highest completion percentage quarterbacks in college football, why he was so good, and why North Carolina was so good last season, because he played at such a high level. This guy has it. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's something about Mitchell Trubisky that I really like, and he continued that momentum on Saturday at the Combine. That guy, to me, has something, and I thought he played himself into a big-time conversation in the first round. Will he be the first pick? I doubt it, but I think he has the chance to be the first quarterback taken off the board, and I think his play on Saturday at the Combine help further that conversation. Deshaun Watson, 4.66 40 for the national champ quarterback. Went out, ran, did the things that we expected him to do. Thought he stroked it all day. But the thing that I was most impressed with was his weight. Okay, this is something that I'm going to talk about, but now it doesn't ring as true. I want to see if he's going to be able to maintain this. It's one thing to put this weight on for the Combine. I want to know if he can maintain this weight, however. He put on 12 pounds. This guy was right around 209 at Clemson. His playing weight was right around 209, 210. He was 221 at the Combine, which is impressive, and he still ran a 4.66. Very impressive. That was something that I had questions and doubts about. Those smaller frame quarterbacks don't do well in this league. We saw Teddy Bridgewater go down to a gruesome injury. Robert Griffin III was as fragile as it gets. Those smaller frame quarterbacks struggle at the next level, staying healthy. We saw it last year with the first pick overall in the draft out of Cal. These quarterbacks struggle that are very thin and rail framed. And so I needed to know he could put on weight, and he did. And so I thought that was probably the most impressive thing outside of what I saw on the field. And like I said, he stroked it all day, man. The accuracy was there on all 3 levels. He throws a beautiful deep ball. We're going to talk more about him in the draft wrap-up, draft prospects 101 series as well, because he made it look easy out there. He was so comfortable. I even thought his footwork wasn't all that bad for a guy that played in a strictly, primarily spread offense. So very impressed with Deshaun Watson on the day. And then finally, Davis Webb, 4.79 40. Here's a guy with a live arm, the quarterback out of Cal. Live arm looks a bit mechanical to me. Everything he does, he looks like he's thinking about it as he's doing it. I think there's a lot that has to be worked on there. And much like the other big arm quarterbacks in this draft that performed at the Combine on Saturday, Mahomes, Kaiser, he was inconsistent throwing the football. The arm strength is there. No one's questioning it. But he was inconsistent. He'd make a deep throw, and you say, wow, that's gorgeous. He'd make a beautiful throw on a dig route, and you go, man, that is special. Even on the post corner, he'd drop one in the bucket, and then there'd be another throw on a curl where he just airmails it, or on a speed out where he just throws it 4 yards over the guy's head, and he doesn't even have a shot. And you're just like, where did that come from? That's what you get out of Davis Webb. There's work there that needs to be done. Like I said, I just want to see him relax. He's so tight. It just seems like everything he's doing is so mechanically done. It just seems like he's thinking too much. I just want him to go out and play. But all the tools are there for him to be successful. He just needs some work. But I thought he went out and showed why someone needs to give this guy a look-see and pick him up and work with him, because he's got all the intangibles and all the tools necessary to be successful at the next level. So those are your quarterbacks on day 2 of the Combine. Let's get to the receivers. We'll go back to group 1 of the receivers. Quincy out of Boyjo, out of Ole Miss, ran a 4.42. I thought he ran well, thought he caught it well. I was impressed with his 40 time. I didn't think he was going to run that fast. This is a guy that played outside and in the slot at Ole Miss. And I watched a ton of SEC football, so I can talk a lot about what I was expecting out of him. I did not expect a 4.42 out of him. So he helped himself just from the fact that he ran extremely fast, because he can catch the football, he can play inside, he can play outside, he's got that versatility. I think he helped himself at the Combine. K.D. Cannon out of Baylor. We know these Baylor guys struggle to come in and run the route tree, but this guy can fly, and if nothing else, he'll come in and instantly give you a deep threat. He showed the explosiveness all day long. I love the way that he got in and out of breaks. He's very quick, as well as long distance speed. Ran a 4.4 140, and for a good portion of the day was the fastest receiver until someone else came and blew that out of the water. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But K.D. Cannon, like I said, one of those guys that's going to come into the league and be a home run threat if he can latch on with a team. I thought he came out and he helped himself in day 2 of the Combine. Stacy Coley out of Miami. A lot of people were upset that he didn't play at the East-West Shrine game. He didn't decide to go, so he needed to really come out and show well, and I thought he did that at the Combine. Ran well, 4.4 5.40. That's a good time for him. He can run back punts. He can be a guy that can be back on kickoffs if need be. He can play the slot. I don't really necessarily think he's going to be able to last outside at the next level. I don't think his stature suggests that, but he's a guy that you can move around and do some things with. Caught the football well, showed some twitchiness. I think Stacy Coley helped himself, and I was really impressed with his hands, because there were some times at Miami where I thought he didn't catch the football, thought he caught it very well on Saturday. Chris Goodwin might have been the biggest winner in Group 1 of these receivers. 4.4 240, another guy that I did not expect. As a matter of fact, Quincy out of Boyjo, when he ran the 4.4 2, it was just like, okay, wow, I didn't expect that, but it wasn't out of the realm of possibility. I was thinking maybe 4.48, 4.49 for out of Boyjo. With Chris Godwin, I'm thinking 4.53, 4.55 maybe, not 4.42. So that Mike Mayock even said, fast guys run fast, slow guys run slow. When something else happens, when the two are opposite of what you're expecting, that's when you get a surprise, and that was a big surprise, because when you think of a Penn State receiver, you don't think of a burner. That 4.42 was impressive. I thought even more so was his ability to catch the football on the day. He had a tremendous day, and he really, really helped himself move up some draft boards with his ability to run and catch the football. Zay Jones out of East Carolina, 4.45, had moments that reminded you of his East-West performance, whether it be the practice week or the actual game itself. But then he had some other moments where you're like, bro, catch the ball. You're supposed to have some of the best hands in this draft. And he dropped some. I thought he struggled a little bit with the gauntlet drill. He struggled with a couple of catchable footballs that a guy with his stature and his ability to catch the football, you're expecting him to catch that, and he didn't. So I thought he was a little inconsistent, but it didn't change my mind one iota on what he is as a football player. I just thought he didn't come out and wow me the way that I expected him to continue the momentum that he had built from the East-West Shrine game. I didn't think he necessarily did that on Saturday. And then Cooper Kupp, a guy that I talked about, is another one of those guys, along with Zay Jones and Switzer, that you needed to watch, keep your eye on to see how fast they would be able to run. And Zay Jones really helped himself with that 4.45 speed, because that was a big question mark. I talked about those other guys, those possession receivers. How fast could any of these guys separate? Zay Jones checked that box off. So that was a big thing for Zay Jones. What about Cooper Kupp? It's 4.6, 240, not as fortunate for him. He's just not fast. That's what that says to me. He's just not a fast guy. Now, he may go and clean that up at his pro day, but what's done is done, okay? He may go run a 4.56 or 4.55 at his pro day. I saw the 4.62 on tape. He doesn't look like he's all that fast, but he separates with such good routes. I'm going to tell you right now, of this group one, and maybe even the entire day, I think he might run the most precise routes, and he may have the best hands of anybody on the combine field on Saturday, okay? He made it look so effortless catching the football. The gauntlet drills, everything, speed outs, comebacks, you name it. His hands were so soft. The ball literally melted in his hands. I'm telling you right now, Cooper Kupp is going to come in and he's going to help somebody, and I think he's going to help someone immediately just because of how well he runs routes and catches the football. Dismiss the 40 time. This guy's going to win at the next level because he can run routes. If you're not going to be fast, you better be a technician. Cooper Kupp is a technician. I saw that again at the combine. So that's your group one wide receivers. Let's go to group two and talk about them. We'll start with Mike Williams. Didn't run his 40. A little disappointed by that. I talked about that yesterday. I'll elaborate once more and just say, look, you get two cracks at it. Why not run at the combine? If you don't like your time there, you can always clean it up at your pro day. But I just want to see guys come out and compete, especially when it comes to running the 40. You have nothing to lose. If you're slow, you're slow. Okay? Waiting an extra 3 weeks isn't going to change anything. If you're going to run a 4.59 at the combine, guess what? You're probably going to run a 4.56 at your pro day. Good for you. Great. Okay, what's the big difference? Go out, run. You don't like it, clean it up at your pro day. I don't understand. So if you don't kill it at your pro day, then you're screwed. So I just don't get that. But in any event, he was smooth all day. A guy that just came out and did what we expected him to do. He caught everything. Bottom line, I liken him to a guy last year that chose not to run at the combine because he knew he was going to run slow, and he did run slow at his pro day. And I expect the same from Mike Williams at the Clemson pro day in Laquan Treadwell. Laquan Treadwell was so smooth last year at the combine. He made it look easy. Remember, he had on his hat, had it on backwards, and he caught everything, and he made it look easy. Mike Williams did the same thing. He was overshadowed by another receiver and what he was able to do. And so we didn't talk a lot about Mike Williams, or at least they didn't on the telecast, but I thought he went out and he was just as cool as the other side of the pillow. But again, I would have loved to have seen him run, and he did not do that. Isaiah McKenzie, a guy that I talked about on my guide to the 2017 NFL Scouting Combine, is someone to look out for because I think he can help you in the returns game, and he's got some speed, and he showcased that running a 4.4, 240. He was able to catch the football fluidly all day long. So I think he not only can help you in special teams game, where he was a speed demon for the Georgia Bulldogs, I think he can also help you as a receiver, that you can slide into the game every so often and maybe get some big plays in the passing game, play action fake, let them go deep. Sort of like what you saw with the Falcons and Taylor Gabriel. Maybe you can run some hitches and bubble screens for him, something to get him out in space where this guy can be dynamic. He showed the ability to change directions quickly, caught the football fluidly. I think he helped himself on the day. The big story of the day, however, at the receiver position was Washington's John Ross. 4.2240, set a new NFL scouting combine record. This guy can flat out fly. We knew that going into the combine, and he did not disappoint. He set the table with his 11-1 broad jump, and his 37-inch vert. So you already knew that he had a chance to go out and do something special, and that he did. He hurt himself, pulled up lame at the very end, and he said that he thought he could run a 4.2 flat, and if he didn't pull up lame, because if you watch the simulcast, Chris Johnson gets out to an early lead, but he catches up, and at the end, he pulls up a little lame. If he doesn't pull up lame, maybe he's running a 4.2 flat. I mean, this guy was flying. You see the kind of explosiveness he has. The only question is, can he stay healthy? He's actually about to have shoulder surgery, on Monday or sometime next week. So this is a guy that has had multiple surgeries throughout his career already, has torn his ACL before. So this is a guy that you just got to make sure you clear the medical with him. But we saw this guy go out and make combine history. He's a blazer. And not only is he fast, this guy's one hell of a receiver as well. Curtis Samuel was a guy that I was intrigued by coming into this thing because he's one of those Ty Montgomery, Percival Harvin type players, receiver, running back, kind of a mixture of both. What is he at the next level? He's an athlete, okay? You bring this guy in, he worked out with the receivers, he can run routes, but I think if you're a team like the Packers, if you're a team out there that you need some depth at running back, but you're also looking for a guy that can help you as a receiver, Curtis Samuel is going to be your man. And I thought he had some drops on the day, okay? But he's a guy that has natural hands. Just thought he took his eye off the ball a couple of times and didn't see it in. But he's in that Percival Harvin, Ty Montgomery mold, and he showed his versatility on this day. And I think he's another one of those guys with that 40 time, 4.31. He is an absolute blazer. And again, when John Ross goes out and runs a 4.22, people forget that a guy like Curtis Samuel went out and ran a 4.31. He's a blazer. He can help you, and I expect him to be another one of these guys that comes off the board relatively early in the third, maybe even as early and soon as the second round, depending on the fit of a team and what they think he can be for them. Another one of those guys, you need to have a plan for him if you're going to draft him, especially if you're going to spend an early pick on him. Or Darrius Stewart out of Alabama, 4.49 40. That's a great time for him. I was expecting him to run in the 4.5s. Was really interested to see how well he would run because I think he's another one of those guys, has great hands in this draft. So how fast are you? He went out, had a really solid day. I think he's a natural hands catcher, a guy that is very fluid out there, does all the dirty work, will block, will do everything you want him to do. One of those guys that I could see playing in the league for 13 years, easy money, and just one of those guys that's a consummate professional. He went out and did exactly what I thought he was going to do. And the 40 time, to me, solidified his status as one of those guys you can get in the mid-rounds that's going to come in and help you probably right away in his rookie season. Juju Smith-Schuster was another guy I wanted to see how fast he would run because I know he can catch the football, and I wanted to see how fast he was. And he is exactly what I thought he was. He's a USC wide receiver, buyer beware. 4.54 40. He's a good football player, but so are the countless number of USC receivers that have come through the league and have disappointed. We'll see what he's able to do. He's not fast. He's a guy that can get open, win, and separate with his route running ability. I want to see how he performs at the next level because there were times where this guy was missing on a milk carton when his team needed him the most. So we'll see what happens with him. But I thought he came out and he didn't do anything to hurt himself on Saturday. Ryan Switzer was another guy that I was intrigued by. Again, beautiful day catching the football. Really solid 40 time, 4.51. I was really impressed with him. He's got New England Patriot written all over him. To me, the best slot receiver in this draft. He caught everything on this day. I walked away uber impressed with Ryan Switzer, and I said someone's going to get themselves one hell of a football player somewhere in the third, fourth, probably in that 4th to 5th round range. I don't see him lasting past the 4th round. This guy can help your team right away. He's a slot machine. He went out and proved it and showed you that he can run a little bit. He's that Julian Edelman type of mold, and 4.51 is right in that wheelhouse. He's going to be a very special player in this league, I believe, and he went out and proved that, I thought, at the Combine. And then Taywan Taylor, a guy that I mentioned on my breakdown as a guy to watch at this Combine, went out, and I thought he had a magnificent day. Caught the football well. There were a couple of drops in there, but then there was a diving stab that he made that everybody was going off and hooting and hollering about. He's the type of guy that can change the game. And that 4.5 that he ran at 6'2", 6'3", 215 pounds, that's exactly what I was looking for. I was really looking for something south of 4.52. He gave us 4.5 flat. I'm impressed with him. Had a high volume number of catches at Western Kentucky. He checked all the boxes for me on Saturday. Walked away really impressed, and I think someone's going to get a good football player with him as well. So those are your receivers that I chose to focus in on day 2 of the Combine. Let's get to what has to be the most impressive group of the Combine thus far, and probably the most impressive on the offensive side of the football in this draft. That's the tight end position. I talked about them before the season started, along with the running backs, and said, look, man, we're going to have 2 impressive groups if guys hold up and perform at the level that I thought they could during the course of the college football season, and they didn't disappoint this year, and they did not disappoint at the Combine. I've never seen a group of tight ends this fast before in my life. These guys were picking them up, putting them down, and not only can they catch, and they really hammered this home during the Combine, they can block as well. So these are some guys. In college football, the tight end position has been slowly dying because of spread offenses and the lack of these guys having to do what traditional tight ends do, line up tight to the line as a Y and block. But these tight ends have really brought back that whole tight end feel to the game, and they have a chance to change the game. And let's run through these tight ends quickly. Evan Engram, for my money, won the day at the tight end position, ran a 4.42 40. Are you kidding me? Let me repeat that. Ran a 4.42 40 out of Ole Miss. This guy was flying, and that is just remarkable. The 3rd best Combine time for a tight end in the Combine's history. So you're talking about a guy that was really flying, and to me, he set the pace in tempo for the rest of these tight ends. They came out the gate running. All right, the first 5 or 6 guys were just absolutely flying. And when you compare it to Evan Engram, the rest of those guys don't look fast. But if you look at these times, I just don't use Evan Ingram's time as a measuring stick. Take him out of the mix. He's an outlier. You look at these times, these tight ends are flying, okay? I thought he caught the football. He's natural as a hands catcher. Evan Engram was tremendous. Ran routes efficiently and effectively, caught everything, made it look easy. He, to me, might have made himself the most money of any tight end at the Combine, because I don't think anybody was entertaining the thought of this guy being a first-round pick. After what he did, I think he might have put himself in the discussion as a first-round pick now, early second for sure. Gerald Everett out of South Alabama ran a 4.62, which is a great time for a guy that's 6'3", 240, 37.5-inch vert. Thought he caught the football well, did have a couple of drops sprinkled in, but running that fast at that size, small school guy, everything is there. I think he helped himself at the Combine as well. Bucky Hodges, 4.57, out of Virginia Tech. 6'6" guy, he's a behemoth, does not block well at all, wasn't asked to at Virginia Tech. This is an ex-quarterback in high school, so there's some work to be done there. I just didn't think he caught the football that well, though. I was really disappointed in Bucky Hodges because I expected him to come out, dominate, catch the football, and there were too many drops for my liking. He struggled in the gauntlet. He struggled on some corner routes. He struggled on the out route. There were too many drops for a guy that I expected to come out and dominate catching the football. So I walked away not as impressed with Bucky Hodges. Doesn't change how I view him. I know this guy can catch the football, but he did not have a great day. If that was someone's first time watching him, he did not make a great impression on them at the Combine in my mind. O.J. Howard, out of Alabama, the consensus #1 tight end, did everything to nail that shut. He is the #1 tight end in this draft, 4.51. At 6'5", 251, keep in mind that yesterday, LSU running back Leonard Fournette ran the same exact time, basically, and he is 10 pounds lighter than that of O.J. Howard. O.J. Howard's a freak. And if you look at him and his body, his shoulders are broad, he's physical, he's chiseled like a Greek goddess. This guy, I don't know if I've ever seen a tight end look and run the way that he does. This guy's phenomenal. He's going to be a stud at the next level, and I don't think he did anything to change anyone's mind. He is the first tight end coming off the board for sure. And that 40 time, I think, solidified that for everyone. Okay, everyone. Darrell Daniels, 4.55 40, tight end out of Washington. A little bit stiff for a guy that was an ex-wide receiver. I expected him to be a little bit more fluid. But that being said, he ran well at a 4.55. I thought he caught it well for the most part. Did have a couple of drops, but for the most part, I thought he caught it well. He helped himself. He's definitely going to get drafted, and I think he's one of those guys that could quietly have a really solid impact for a team. Not necessarily in year one, but down the road, this is one of those guys that you're not really mentioning, but down the road could have a really solid NFL career. David Njoku was the guy that a lot of people were looking at as a big-time guy in this draft. Height, weight, speed freak, and 4.64 40. Again, we're talking about a guy that's 24 years old, that's 246 pounds. You're talking about a guy that's around 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". This guy, 37.5-inch vertical, 11-1 broad jump. This guy's a freak, all right? Went out, ran well. Look, this 4.64, that's a great time for a guy his size. And I think he's going to get bigger and fill out his frame. He's a young guy, the youngest player at the combine. That being said, he doesn't strike me as a natural hands catcher, but then when you watch the tape, he catches everything with his hands. So there's some questions there to be had. I need more answers, but I walked away still impressed with what he brought to the table. I just would have liked to have seen him catch the football a little bit better. Adam Shaheen out of Ashland, a big 278-pound tight end, 6'6" guy. Man, is he big. Boy, is he athletic for his size. 4.79 40. Moves well for a guy that's 280 pounds. He catches it well, and he's got very strong hands. You watch tape. I've already watched 2 of his games because I was just blown away with his size and his athleticism. This guy can catch the football. He strikes me as one of these guys that's going to end up with the Buffalo Bills or the New England Patriots, and he's going to come in. And if they could just teach him to block a little bit better, this guy could have a long NFL career. The type of a Jason Witten, okay? And I think he's way more athletic than Jason Witten ever was, but he's right around that same size, a little bit bigger than Witten, actually. I think he could have that kind of career if he could just learn how to block effectively. George Kittle might have been probably my biggest surprise, a guy that I knew nothing about coming into this process. 4.52 40 time. This is a Big Ten tight end, so I'm thinking he's going to be extremely slow and plotty. And this guy comes out and just flashes athleticism in drill after drill after drill. I just told you he ran a 4.5 40. You're talking about a guy that's 6'4", 247 pounds. He had a broad jump of 11 feet. Just athletically gifted is George Kittle, and I just walked away saying, wow. Wow. And he had himself one hell of a day. Jeremy Sprinkle out of Arkansas, 4.69 40. He's a guy that's 270 pounds, 6'5", 260 pounds, 27 reps of 2.25. This is a big physical guy that can block in the run game, can catch the football a little bit. Sometimes he'll have concentration lapses. We saw that at the combine where he dropped the football, but I like Jeremy Sprinkle a lot. Talked about him before the season started. I think he's a guy you work with him. He could be a serviceable tight end in this league. Jordan Leggett did not run the 40. Disappointed that he didn't run it. Rough day for him at times. I thought for a guy that I expected to come out and be a natural hands catcher, I thought he dropped the football way too much for my liking. But he's a natural route runner, a guy that has great hands, and I think he's going to be just fine when it's all said and done. But I thought he did have some times where he dropped the football a little bit too much for my liking for a guy that I was really expecting big things from at the combine. Did not walk away all that impressed with Jordan Leggett. Finally, Jake Butt did not participate. He's another one of these guys that if you've got the resources and the ability to draft and stash this guy away, do so. He's a really talented tight end. Tore his ACL in the bowl game versus Florida State, but he is a football player, and he would have been right in the mix as one of the best tight ends in this draft class had he been able to participate. So those are your tight ends. They ate it up. They lit the combine ablaze with their play. They were the talk of the combine after, of course, John Ross's 4.22 40. But nonetheless, the tight ends, to me, stole the show for the offensive side of the football this weekend. They were outstanding. I had a lot of fun watching them. And we're going to see what happens and where these guys go. But I expect a lot of these guys that I named to be drafted, if not all of them to be drafted. They're that gifted. They're that talented. I just ran down a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 tight ends. And I fully expect every single one of them to find their names called on a draft day, whether it's draft day 1, 2, or 3. I think every single one of these guys is going to end up on an NFL roster with a draft pick, not a free agent signing. So that's going to do it for day 2 of the Combine. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie Tee Network. Got a lot more coverage coming. Day 3 going to feature the defensive linemen and linebackers. Your best player in the draft, Myles Garrett, going to be on full display. He says he wants to tear the Combine apart, so we're going to be watching him closely. Takkarist McKinley, a big-time defensive end, edge rusher out of UCLA, going to miss 4 to 6 months, going to require surgery. So that's a big blow for him. And I was looking forward to seeing him run and move, change directions. No longer going to be the case. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. I'll be back with all the particulars of the Combine in day 3. Remember, we're changing the game one live feed at a time. I will see you next time. Have a good one.